can't believe you could make it.
Yeah.
I am so excited to have you here. I know you're a busy lady. I spend a lot of time with you. You're my personal trainer, which is like one of those things that I always wanted, and I finally got it.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to have you because we've had so many conversations.
So many.
Over
good ones.
The bar. Yeah.
I'm in
When I'm in there
withdrawals
going,
now. I drove all the way to Highland just to get my fix in. My Deborah time.
Your Deborah time.
I need my Deborah time.
Yeah, and I just thought it was so interesting that it was such a natural thing to be able to speak in the middle of me trying to huff and puff and try not to die with the things you're making me do.
Yeah, it's completely contradicting what I'm supposed to be doing, you guys. You're supposed to be out of breath working hard, and instead we're in the middle of talking about philosophy and like the way the world works. And I'm like, yeah, 2 more reps. Anyways.
But it makes it bearable because that was my biggest fear.
Yeah.
To go show up to my personal trainer, who happens to be the 3rd strongest woman in the world, aiming for first. I heard that conversation. Yeah. And competed all over the world, and you've done Highland Games and keeping that title up and improving it. And anyway, so I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? I'm a fitness kind of person. I want to stay fit because I don't want to look like I had 10 children, which I have had.
I wish I looked like that after 10 children.
It's a lot of work, but I just kind of did it on my own.
Yeah.
But I never had a person one-on-one, and it's been such a gift because talking through life is like, oh, I can talk. Yeah. And then we'll do the
hard. We'll do the hard and the hard.
So I want to introduce yourself. I know Beck. I want to know you're massive. It's okay to brag. Tell me all your bragging things. How many countries you've been to and all the amazing stuff you've done.
Oh, gosh. I'm oddly really bad at this part. Selling myself has never been
That's okay. It's
my
just
forte.
you and me.
About me, am I pretending that you don't know me?
Yeah.
Well, hello, Deborah. I am Rebecca Rowley, mother of 2. My biggest and hardest accomplishment to date is raising 2 boys. And as a single mother for a majority of the time, so that was really difficult. And on the side, I ran a personal training coaching business. And on the side of that, I was a professional athlete. That is my bragging right, is that I survived all of that.
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could technically say I didn't just survive it. I eventually thrived, but it didn't come without a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work. So what am I proud of? I've been world ranked in strongman for 3 years. Started with 7th, 4th, and then 3rd. I was a national level Olympic lifter before that. And I was a college athlete in track and field, and I was nationally ranked in that before that. So I have been, and I was on the junior Olympic team in track and field through high school. So I have been competing on an elite level since I was 15.
Wow.
And I'm almost 32. So that's all I know.
And you look 20. So, that's amazing.
Don't look too close. Don't zoom in. But I'm definitely a little bit older than 20. And my joints definitely feel older than 20 at this point after what I've put them through. But yeah, I'm proud of that. And then in trying to even think of a life beyond being an athlete is like almost impossible for me. But so I would say that's the next accomplishment, figuring out what I have to offer the world outside of lifting things.
Yeah. No, we've talked about it. I keep saying to you, you need to be a counselor. You need to be a podcaster. You need to be. There's so much that you can share. Like I could try to get my body strong. Like I said, three mornings a week, which is a huge sacrifice for me. And I drive an hour. It's worth it to me. It's worth it to me. It is my son's gym, and I love that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I never expected to also find you. I was like, I'm just going to support my son because I like to work out. But this was such a beautiful thing for me because then I could talk about life and deep things that are difficult. I'm like, just be a counselor while you lift weights.
Right.
But one of the things the reason I brought you here today, you brought yourself, but the reason I asked you to come is because we have been learning about awareness because it's January and we want to make sure that we are fully aware of who we are, where we stand, it doesn't really matter how we got here, but that we're here.
Yeah.
When you talk about you having 2 children, being a single mother and competing and traveling and working and trying to fit everything together and being aware of that person and how that person can go forward. So my pattern for my podcast, because it's easier for me to think in patterns.
Right.
I have this wheel that I think I send you a picture of, and you're welcome to take it home. And it is...
You made this?
Oh, I wish. No.
Oh.
It was like, wow, she's amazing. No.
Yeah.
So I am a doTERRA wellness advocate.
Yeah.
And I've always used the oils, never really promoted them.
Yeah.
But I am ready to promote them.
Yeah.
But my upline, one of the top leaders in doTERRA, actually put this together with a team. And they put it together with, they also have this book that talks about the details of that wheel, which is absolutely wonderful, because you can figure out, like if you look in the back, it's grayish. The things that I want less of, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So if you feel dark, how do you get to that light, right? But by definition, I have to be positive because my life is difficult. So I almost never look at the back, but I do like the front that is green and beautiful.
Right.
So if you see the awareness little petal, because it looks kind of like a flower, it just is able to dissect what awareness would be like. And then it connects it to an oil, which is the magical part of that. So this was done by really well-studied emotional therapists and natural healing people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's well done. And I want to give that credit.
I'm just also enthralled.
Oh, yeah. No, it's good. So Natalie Goddard.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have you meet her sometime. She's actually coming to my podcast in February.
Have you talked to me about this specific woman?
No.
Oh, this is a different person. Okay.
I haven't, because I haven't seen you for a few weeks because I was in Guatemala.
Right.
But she has let me use this intellectual property of hers and the team. And just because she wants the whole world to hear about how do you get your emotions lined up so you can survive. Imagine what 2020 would have been like if people could be connected to their emotions, starting with peace.
Them.
Yeah. Or acknowledge that they have them, right?
Yeah. My mom always said that, like, my mom's a therapist, and you knew this. I'm looking at this, and it's just like the amount of adjectives, the several ways to describe just one emotion, right? And what's even more funny is, like, numb, wounded, confusion, control, insecurity. I'm seeing all these things, and how we typically like display any of this is like anger first.
Yes.
Right? And I just like, do people even know how many layers, or like, do they even understand what's causing them to feel the way they feel? Like, when you have this many words, it's like, I need to carry this around with me so I can be like, well, today I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I'm withholding my voice. like if you could find a way to like say things like this clearly, like, this would be incredibly helpful. Like, it just remove that one base emotion that everyone runs to immediately because it's the easiest thing to express, easiest thing to feel. And
Anger,
actually
sadness,
stick
blame.
to the issue, the underlying problem, so that you can actually get back to the green side.
Yeah, and it's the layers are brilliant because it goes all the way. You have young children. I met them. They're adorable. But they have been able to really explain not just the emotions or how you feel them and how they are dissected, but how do you deal with that emotion? How do you take like, for example, we will talk about love in February. And there is an oil named Rose. You know my Rose, and you know the story. She was at your gym right after the accident to make sure that she could get her strength back, because she is a dancer and whatever. She does a lot of physical things before the accident. And I found that really fascinating because the rose oil is actually made out of roses. So all these oils are made out of plants.
Right.
And the name doTERRA is like a gift of the earth.
Yeah.
Because the earth has given us all the answers we need. And we have not taken advantage of that.
Right.
You say, well, you feel anger, you feel frustration, you feel sadness, so you just medicate. You don't think about, how about going to the gym and getting that frustration out with punching or whatever you need to do. Like things that are not necessarily just a medicine. It's not like a drive-through. I have this emotion and I don't want to deal with it, so I'm just going to medicate myself. And, there are times you need to do that. Your mother's a therapist. And I'm studying psychology, so I get it. Yeah. But anyway, so we definitely, these are for you. I'll bring him to
I
the
get to
gym.
keep this?
Yes. I'll bring him to the gym next time because I do need him today.
Okay.
But I would love to have you keep him and we'll talk about it because I think it gives people the idea of empowerment, which we will talk about in March for International Women's Day.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Maybe you should come back.
Yeah.
Love to have you talk about empowerment of women because you're like the definition. But so what I've done for my podcast to make it simple, so there are 12, the 12 emotions that are essential.
Yeah.
That we need to understand and accept and deal with. And they're all positive right here, right? And then the other side, like I said, how do you get to that positive side? But then there are circles of influence. Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about people being victim-like because they feel like they have no will, they have no power. There's somebody else's fault, right? But I believe, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, that you start with yourself.
Yeah.
You can't change the world if you can't make your bed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did not make my bed this morning. I had like 2 hours of sleep, so I ran out. Yeah,
I think I made my bed like 2
maybe I won't be able
ago.
to change the world today.
Yeah, it's okay.
I hope Russ did it.
We'll help inspire other people to make their beds.
Right. But you start with yourself. If you want to find peace, start with connecting with the divine.
Mm-hmm.
I think we go horizontal too often.
Mm-hmm.
We should be going vertical a lot more because there's a divine. Whether or not people are religious, it doesn't matter.
Right.
We know that we did not create ourselves and we did not raise the sun.
Right.
It came out by somebody. And if we can connect with that, it gives us the peace.
Mm-hmm.
So that first week is what I like to deal with. What am I doing for myself, for my podcast?
Spirituality.
Yeah, what is that personal circle of influence? And then the next circle of influence is family.
Mm-hmm.
And the third week of the month, we talk about the circle of influence of community and the world. I deal with a lot of people that are all over the world like I am and you are.
Right.
But the fourth week, and I don't know if I explained this to you over text because that's how we communicated. The fourth week, I find somebody that embodies what I'm trying to understand because it's not really necessarily me teaching. Yeah. The reason I am a nerd, I love learning. Yeah, so having a guest come teach me things like I just learn all kinds of stuff from other people.
Yeah.
So, but I feel from our conversations that you embody awareness. No pressure on you. But I have Rosie be my fourth week guest because she actually used all the things that we talked about throughout the month about peace. She was able to be at peace in Australia where she was fairly suicidal.
And hurting a lot.
And hurting and so many different operations and uncertain things that she shouldn't have been walking. I mean, we talked through that
Such
story.
a young age.
Yeah, but she embodied that. In my mind, she was able to have enough peace to survive.
Right.
And that's what you're in that seat for today. I wanted you to tell me, just tell me about how are you aware of who you are, aware of what women or children, whatever you think, because I respect that awareness about you.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, and awareness, you have traveled a lot. You also have awareness in family.
Right.
You dealt with a very complicated family dichotomy, like just the family systems that you have belonged to.
Oh, yeah.
You being a kid and your mom working too, having to be a pseudo mom. I mean, your whole life you have been aware of what you had to do, and you have stepped up to the plate, right? Stepped up to the plate and lifted the weights.
Yeah. So, I mean, with awareness, like, first of all, like, I kind of want to remove, I don't want to take away, like, I really appreciate the way you see me, like, that it means everything to me. But I think this awareness it was something that was just expected of me inside of my home. Because my mom is also a therapist, right? Yeah, and so I think what my mom was trying to help her children with is connection. And I think that as an adult, as a child, it was really difficult for me. I come to her, Mom, the neighbor punched me in the face. And she's like, okay, well, what did you do? And I was like, wait, hold on. Hey, wait a minute. Like, he punched me. And she's, well, what'd you do? And I'm like, well, I spit gum at him, And so that was the first thing she wanted to address with me. And it was really frustrating as a child growing up inside of that, because it always kind of felt like, well, where's my advocate? Where's my validation? And even as an adult, sometimes I've talked with her about it, and she has expressed, and now I understand as a parent myself, or even inside of my own personal relationships, is that it was important first for me to see the part I played inside of the situation in order for me to be able to be empathetic with the other person in order for me for the relationship to move forward, for us to get out of whether that be gum spitting and punching or like a very complicated relationship issue.
Yes.
How you solve those issues was the exact same process. And that typically had to start with me personally. And that's really hard to do. That's really, really hard to do. That's not something that I'm a shining star at all the time.
None of us are.
But that is something my mom really worked very hard to ingrain inside of her children, which is that you have got to be accountable. So even if it wasn't awareness is the way that she was going about it, I would definitely say it was accountability. Like you cannot show up in your relationships. You cannot be a better you. You cannot ask other people to be a better them if you're not going to do it for yourself.
I love that.
Or do that for them. Right. So I think this awareness that I seem to have is really just my desperation to show up the way I want other people to show up for me.
I like that.
And
you're proactive about it.
Yeah, and I have seen that doesn't necessarily mean that I get what I put in, and that's where heartbreak comes in, right? But I live with far less regret than I think the average person does, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I have definitely very far from perfect, but I kind of, the one thing I do like about myself is that I can comfortably look myself in the mirror and tell myself when I'm not showing up the way I should be.
I like that.
And so I feel blessed in that because I haven't really lost any relationships that I really needed in my life. And if anything, they've grown and they're close and they're intimate and they're connected. And I've had that ability to do that with many people in my life. And I think it also, inside of awareness, it's not that there's a signal that goes off on top of my head that people are like, oh, she's aware, she's safe. But you do pick up onto that when you're around a person. You need them. You need to know that person can be accountable, or that person is self-aware in order for you to feel safe with them.
Right.
Because I'm gonna screw up. I'm gonna say something dumb. I'm not always gonna be a perfect me. And I think that the people around me need to know that I could be wrong. And if you lack the ability to be wrong, or lack humility, or lack awareness, again, a lack of connection. And so for me, it's just the most important thing to me really is connection.
I like
and
that.
growing those connections. So I don't think that can exist outside of awareness or accountability.
You know, it's so beautiful because you obviously just saw this for the first time, and I don't think you have photographic memory.
No.
Okay, just checking.
I wish.
You have all kinds of stuff, so I'm amazed every time we have a conversation. I'm like, wow, you know that too. But you mentioned a lot of those pieces I were talking about, the dissecting of what awareness is. You mentioned several of them. Let me to read them to you.
Yeah, no.
I'll read you the whole thing. And I just thought that was interesting. So there are a couple of them that I want you to expound on. But you mentioned humility. You cannot be aware if you're not willing to be humble and vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about in some of another episode the idea of you have strengths and you have weaknesses. Oh, I have a friend for you. You've got to connect to the mommy whisperer. She was my guest for the second week.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Remember all the things you kept telling me? Like, what do I do with this kid? And what do I do with this? And what do I do? She's got it down. This is what she does for a living. She
adopt me.
Oh, she would. She would. She is just lovely. And she is married to a friend of mine, and I've recently met her. Yeah. But this is what she does. She actually is a mother consultant. Oh. And you can do a 30-minute free session, and I just have mine over a camera and microphones.
I might need like 8 hours or more, but...
Yeah. She has like a 12-week session. I mean, she has... Anyway, it just occurred to me that...
amazing.
Yeah, so if you go to, I think is the-mommywhisperer.com.
Yeah.
But she's in a podcast too, so you can find her.
Yeah.
And if not, text me and I'll give you her number.
Yeah, got it.
But she lives in California and traveled all the way here to do this.
Damn.
Right?
See,
right.
Everyone wants a piece of the Deb.
I guess. I was just so excited that she could do that. And she had other things she ended up doing here, but that was the catalyst to come to my podcast. Yeah. So I'm like, yes, I love you. Okay, so humility, you already mentioned it. You mentioned responsibility, right? Because you have to be responsible of, did you spit the gum out to begin with?
Right,
and, and you're blessed to have had a mother that was aware
Yeah.
of how to raise a child, because most of us are just guessing.
Right.
I had to go to college and study family science and psychology so I could get the children.
Handle on it, yeah.
I was like, okay, how do I do this? My parents were both, I guess, orphans, but they both, for different circumstances, they ended up not having a family unit.
Right.
My dad's father died before he was born from a stroke. So he had to be raised by his mother and uncles and whatever he could. And then my mother, her father abandoned them.
Yeah.
So she had to be put into a daycare so her mother could work.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, whoa, and they were incredible parents.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'm just learning whatever the next layer. Anyway, so where am I? You need to be honest. You already mentioned that. Very honest with, okay, whose fault is it? Authentic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing that has been so fun as we do these workout things, because you completely tell me how you're feeling that day. And some days you don't feel so good.
Yeah.
You know? Like the 9/11. Remember that? That was a tough day.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was going through a therapy session because I'd forgotten that I had gone through a coup d'etat in my country as an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
And never processed it.
Right.
Until I talked to you that day, because you went through 9/11 as a kid.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that authenticity and knowing that you are confident and vulnerable at the same time.
And what did it do for you?
Going through that?
Well, what I just wanted to point out is, because Brene Brown, she's the queen of vulnerability, right? Yes. And that's why I love her. I mean, it's hard to not want to worship the ground she walks on, because she's just so enlightened. She's just amazing. But her stuff is just gospel truth, and I see it time and time again. And you're a perfect example of that. Allowing myself to be vulnerable, authentic, honest, being okay with not being okay with you allowed you to do the same thing, which further connected us and brought us to a place where we had way more to relate to without ever even knowing. I wouldn't have known unless I said that today sucks. Yeah. And like, instead of me being like, oh, it's good. How are you? Good. All right.
Fine,
all right.
fine.
3 more reps. Yeah. Like, instead it's like, no, like, right. And I wouldn't have had that ability or the opportunity to connect with you on that level, and vice versa, had I not dared to just be honest.
Right.
And so
and that's huge in relationships. And I think that's part of the reason that your relationships are meaningful, because you can say, okay, this is my need, this is my boundary, but at the same time, what do you need? Like, I would listen. You're such a good listener too. So it's just I think starting the year with awareness is just powerful in my mind, because it helps you really get to the point that okay, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And who said that we should be perfect? I know it's part of the gospel. There are a lot of Christians in this state, and I am a Christian myself.
Right.
But I don't think Christ ever meant to say, you have to be perfect today.
No.
In this imperfect world, hanging out with imperfect people. Right? It's just a process. Okay, let's look at this other list. Authentic, self-control. Right? If you didn't spit out on that boy, that gum, right. That maybe the punch wouldn't have come. So being aware of that. So there are 4 things that I really want you to touch on, because we've had this conversation before. And I'll tell you what the 4 are. There are 4 missing in that list that we just read. One of them is unattached. The other one is aligned, balanced ambition, and balanced male energy. Oh. So interesting, right? So tell me about that balanced male energy.
So you're talking about like the balance between the masculine and the feminine?
It just says that. However you want to define it.
Show me the word. I feel like I need so
like, don't worry, there's no grading.
Balanced male energy.
Do you remember that experience you had at the store, and that those kids were making fun of you? Maybe that's too personal to share, and that's okay.
Oh, no, it's not too personal.
But I think that's something that people don't understand.
Male energy. It's just so interesting that there's a sex attached to it.
Right. That's what we were talking about with the mommy whisperer.
Yeah, right. Masculine is so much easier to understand. Male. I'm going to change that word. I don't like male energy. Yeah, we'll say balanced masculine energy, which is still maybe usually just didn't fit in the line. Yeah, no, it's okay.
But I want to say that to Natalie, and because we were both surprised by the way that it was described. Because some people think male is bad or male is good, and it's neither. It's just male.
Right, because that almost excludes me. And you, right?
Yeah.
But
we have enough masculine energy, I think is what they're trying to say.
Right.
Like
and I feel
people
like
assume is masculine.
it's a very new thought too, right? That women can have a masculine energy. It's new to be embraced. It's new to be mentioned. It's new to be talked about. It's new to feel. To feel for me. Gosh, this year, I mean, I'm almost 32, and this was the first time. Yeah, we naturally have testosterone as women,
we just
right?
never acknowledge
we have it, yeah. But like when you think of masculine, you think of like lumberjack, and I think of my father. I think of like a 6'4", 350-pound man with a beard and a large personality and a loud voice and
feelings, right?
And he just very, man. And so when I think of masculine, I think of that. And the craziest part is I have to hear about how much I'm like my father all of the time. And I know plenty of women who have had that comment said to them as well. You're just like your father. You're just like your father.
Yeah. I'm like my father, actually.
Right. Yeah. And so I don't even know where to start with that because
that's why I thought you might like this one.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm technically figuring out balancing between my feminine and my masculine energy, and I feel like I've been trying to figure that out, or maybe I've been figuring out my whole life and I just haven't embraced it because I've been fighting against this I don't want to call it an issue because I don't think it's an issue. I think it's what makes me.
Yeah.
Which works for some people, it doesn't work for other people, but but I think. But I also feel like women were to be, I'm just going to open the store. We're going to go for it. If we can accept that there's both a masculine and a feminine energy that can go between both sexes, it also would allow men to feel the same way. Right. Because when you think in femininity, I think it's almost the same for a man. If I were to look at like any of the young men around me and I were like, oh, that feminine energy, they would be like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, why are you talking about tutus and perfume and like eating croissants? Like, why are you talking about this with me? But we're forgetting that like maybe like we're looking at this masculine and feminine in a negative way versus like, well, what about the femininity? What am I actually trying to say to you? Are you like more empathetic? Are you like, what about that is good? Gentle, or what am I trying to? Yeah, nurturing, connected, like whatever that is. It's just, it's so hard. I think what's so hard about that is that they both have these like positive and negatives, but they're so strongly attached to male and female.
Yes.
And so, kind of like for me, it's like someone says masculine, I'm like, oh, you're telling me I look like a man. I could be wearing a dress and lipstick the day before and know that I'm feminine, and I could wear the heels and whatever else and feel like the most girl. Yeah, right. But I feel like I don't even know where to go with this.
I love it.
Yeah, because you stumped me. This is my first stump question ever. I don't even know where to go with this. You want me to describe this for myself?
No, Or it doesn't matter. I just think it's fun to have that conversation.
Oh no, it is. It's fun because it's so like stumping.
So
is that a word? Stumping? I think what I would like to see moving forward is probably for us to be able to remove the negative.
The connotations.
The negative connotations attached to like masculine and femininity, because it's so weird that we don't like first think of the positives. Yeah, because it's like when someone tells me I'm so feminine, I'm like, well, I don't ask them what that means. I just say thank you. When someone says, oh, like you're so masculine, like what the hell do you mean?
What
does that mean?
Strong.
Is it because I'm strong? Is it because I've got large shoulders? Like, where are you going with this? Instead of me thinking about like my father and what my dad's kind of an alpha male, but what is it? He's a strong leader. He's very opinionated. Like, what about me are you saying is masculine? And I just, I don't even know where to go with this.
It's the funnest question to ask you.
Yeah.
So one of my professors put it this way.
Male energy. Because I'm assuming this isn't just handed to women.
No, it's for everybody.
Yeah. So is it also calling out men? Be like, balance your male energy, allow some femininity into your life. I don't know. Where is this? Or with women, don't worry if you got a little bit of masculinity. Is that why this is? Because if this is for both sexes,
I think it should have been phrased more like balanced gender and energy or something. You know, I study family science and psychology, and one of the professors has this term that I like. He said it's about being genderful. And going back to Christianity, right? So this is not a religious podcast, but so much of my life has to do with my beliefs in a divine.
Right.
And the example he gave us was Jesus Christ. Talk about balancing a male or female energy. So he was extremely meek, kind,
gentle,
feeding people, loving people. I mean, just listening. I mean, that's a very female kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then what? He carried a cross, and then he was
300
nailed.
Pounds. It was 300 pounds.
Are you kidding me? Only a weightlifter will know that.
Yeah, it was over 300 pounds. Yeah.
I did not know that. And then he
miles. He carried miles.
That gives me chills. That gives me like a lot of appreciation because just carrying the little weights you give me, I'm just like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like that thing we carry like across the whole gym.
Right.
I don't know what that's called.
That thing
that I carry that's
yeah.
really heavy that I push. But I thought, wow, he got nailed to a cross, carried those 300 pounds for miles. Mm-hmm. And then he bled from every pore. You know, there are 5 million pores.
Yeah.
In your body. How can you do that? How can you suffer? Anyway, so I thought, oh, okay. So being able to say there are things about me that are strong and powerful and they don't have to be male. They just are.
They just are, yeah.
And there are things about me, or my son Reed, that will be coming next month, talking about love. I mean, how many men talk about love?
Right.
And because it's like, oh, that's a woman's thing. But it isn't.
But
right?
that's exactly why,
full.
right? Because gender full is not something that's like taught out of the womb.
Yes.
It's like you've got your roles and you need to fill them. You don't play with Barbies, you play with cars.
Yeah, and growing up in
you fall, you stand up and you wipe yourself off. Oh, you fall, you cry, come here, I'll hold you. Like we do that. We do
just
that
naturally.
As a society. We do that everywhere we go.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating that we all become genderless.
Right.
You know, I love being a woman, and I like having a child and be the one that gives birth and nurses that child.
Yeah, right.
Right? That a man can't do that.
Right.
So I grew up in Guatemala. You know that because we told you all kinds of stories. And do you remember that story when I was in line for the bathroom in first grade and they wouldn't let me in because I thought I was a boy?
Yeah.
I had very short hair and I was very slender.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story. But but I grew up with the mentality that you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, girls, boys, they're different.
Yeah.
And yes, we're different, and we need to acknowledge that, and we need to embrace it.
Right.
But the way that my one of my psychology classes, the way that they describe the actual physical brain of a female and the physical brain of a male, was fascinating to me. Because I never understood why I could do 10 things at the same time and not burn the dinner and not drown the kid and still answer the phone and remember that somebody was coming over to pick up a gift. And, you know, I could do that. And I was frustrated at my husband. I would say, could you go get me something from the basement? And he would go get that. And there were things in the way that I would have taken to the basement. Does that make sense? And when I was there, I would have checked to see if the lights were on. But I was like, what is wrong with this guy? But what I did not understand is what they said, that a male brain is like a waffle.
A waffle.
Right?
Oh, okay.
It could be other things, but it's like a waffle. Very, very organized, very compartmentalized.
Yeah.
And nothing to do with nurture. That's just a physical brain. And but it helps them with some of the things that males are really good at. My husband can go to work and the world is falling apart. This is millions of dollars company. There's a glitch in the system. They can't deliver stuff, and he can still come home, and he's home. I mean, some people do that better than others, but
not
they
me.
deal. They deal with stuff. Yeah. But I could not go to the gym, and not feel bad that I left the dishes behind.
Right.
Like last night, I stayed up until 3 a.m. just cleaning up my crazy house because we had just had a party with people making stuff and people, my children. Yeah. And I could not possibly go to bed without the dishes all done, which is crazy because a guy would be okay with that because they are not connecting to each other. But that's because part of the reason that I can be a better mother than my husband, and I don't know if people that offends them, but women just happens to be better mothers because they have that kind of brain.
Yeah, we have different skill sets.
We
were supposed to.
So my brain is more like spaghetti.
Yeah.
Right. So I have the child part. Right. It's great. As long as you put sauce in it.
I'm going to look at people and just think spaghetti bowl and breakfast plate every day.
Yeah. And it's funny because if we were thinking about gender, the Western society really honors logic and strictness and things like that, order too much. And if you were to say to a woman, "Oh, you have a spaghetti brain," they were like, "Oh, I'm so insulted. I'm still organized. I don't guide with my feelings." But that's okay, because we need each other to be able to balance each other out.
Right.
I think it should be more like balance, not the male energy, but balance the energies inside you and use.
Yeah.
I need to be strict when I need to be
The
strict.
yin and the yang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be serious and organized and strong and lift weights. And I drive a truck. You've seen my truck. You know that. But somebody might say, "Ooh, what's wrong with you? You have short hair."
Oh.
I got to tell you the funniest thing. In Guatemala, last week, I was with my sister. I was the only woman in the entire country with short hair.
I'm sure, yeah.
And I'm wearing jeans and I'm tall. And I just felt like people were looking at me like, are you female? You know. Anyway, it was funny. I never seemed so obvious to me until then. Most people were wearing dresses, especially where we were with the Mayans, and they all wear their typical.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's so funny. This is like a fun game. I like how
I know
that really got you going.
like that wheel.
That wheel, like a wheel of fortune. Okay, so let's talk about balanced ambition, because that's something that is very difficult in a mother's world to say. And I know we both struggle with this, because like I said, I traveled 12 countries last year, and I had to leave my children. I took Rose. She was the only one that could come with me for a couple of those countries.
Yeah.
But I also felt that I needed to go learn this, because I needed to find a way to develop Guatemala, that was what I was looking into. But what do you think about that? Because that's a challenge for you. You got to feed the children. As a single mom, what have you done to balance that?
What have I done to balance? Oh. I think it's hard for me is it's because my first instinct is to think of myself as selfish.
That's a woman thing,
or
by
to
the way.
feel selfish for it. So like I think shame comes in almost instantaneously when someone wants to talk to me about this, because I'm just like, because I feel I can like feel that pressure to kind of do things the way that things have always been done. And
that the gender roles thing.
The gender roles, yeah. And also in that, I mean, my mother, her idea of ambition needed to make sure it needed to bring more money to the table. It needed to make sense. It needed to make the most sense to leave the children. And so she went to school. And I think for her, anything else outside of that, like it would have been like a selfish endeavor. And for her, and for her mother before and the mother before that, there was no such thing.
Right.
Like the expectation, you had one job. It's the only thing that you did.
Yeah.
So
difficult, but still not diversified.
Right. And so balance, it's hard to say that like there was no such thing without a lot of sacrifice. Or at least it felt like sacrifice. I mean, it still does. I sacrificed time by having babysitters come in while I was training, or having babysitters and other people help me while I traveled the world and competed all over and all these other things. And so it's difficult for me because I would still tell everyone they should do it. So I have this weird thing where when I talk about it personally, I feel like shame. I don't really want to open up about it because I'm so concerned about the judgment I'm going to receive. Right. And then if someone were to turn around and be like, would you do it again? I'm like, in a heartbeat.
Of course you
would. And
would.
you should do the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's only because of what it brought to the table in terms of like what I could teach my children. Because I mean, we have like, that book education, and then we call it street education or street cred or whatever. And I wish that maybe you and I could come up with a better word for what we learn from the planet, what you learned by going out into other cultures and other people. And I mean, what do they call that? Philanthropy? Is that what it is? The study of people? Philanthropy?
Sociology? I don't know.
I don't know. But like, I feel like maybe what we need to do is coin a term for this in a way that like kind of eliminates that guilt and that shame and allows people to understand that like by furthering your enlightenment or like furthering your education in different ways, it doesn't just have to be walking into a school campus, but it can be like traveling to other countries and just gaining perspective on yourself.
Right. How many countries have you gone to visit?
That would take me maybe a second. Maybe only like 9 or 10, but that's just off the top of my head. I've been to Asia, Africa,
Latin America.
All over Europe. I have not been to Latin America.
You were in Spain.
Yeah, I was just in Spain. Yeah, this
right.
is your fault. You're supposed to take me next time.
Yeah, you're coming.
But like at each place I went, I came back better,
Right.
more grateful, more
aware.
Way more aware of myself, aware of my blessings. Like, and because of that, I can pass that down to my children,
Right.
and not just in the children in Africa. It's like, no, the children in Africa, the ones I saw. The places I've seen, the people I talk to, like those experiences become far more real for the people that I educate or the people that like I impart that wisdom on, because I literally lived it. I did it. It's not just a book. It's not just something that I feel. It's something I saw. It's it's experience that I had, and
experiential learning.
Right. And the same with like, so we balancing, what was the word? Where is this balance? Balance, I don't know. Balancing dreams, ambition. Thank you. But truthfully, I think the coolest thing about it, and I wouldn't have known this. So with Strongman, it was the most sacrifice, and I started Strongman 4 years ago. And if you would have told me 4 years ago I was going to end up being one of the strongest women on the planet, I would have laughed. I was like, okay, I could see it was possible, but no, probably not. But as we climbed, I just kept chasing. And I think for my mother was so concerned about what my children were going to be missing out on. But as time went on, and now that we're looking back in hindsight, I mean, they have this pride. They have this confidence in themselves that like I never had as a child. I don't understand. Like, I'll be watching them, and they'll go to pick up something that's literally 4 times their size. They don't even think twice about it. They just go over
like
there trying to hoist it, or like they have this crazy amount of bravery. And again, it's like I couldn't say that is my doing, but there's parts of me that feel like, well, what if it is? What if them watching me be brave encouraged them to be brave? What if them watching me work really hard and chase a goal is what makes them believe that they should or could do the same thing and then end up successful? Right. And I feel like when you see legacies of success, whether that be in like wealth, or we'll say connection, emotional success, whatever it is, when I pay attention to it's just simply because someone was actively doing it, not just saying it.
Right.
Like I know that I connect because my mother connects. I know that I work hard because my father works hard. Like it's not because they say to work hard. It's not because they say to connect. Like they just action. Did it. And so I feel very strongly about those things. It's like, what do you want for your children?
Right.
You want them to be ambitious. You want them to drive hard into those things. You want them to be brave. You want them to be okay with failing. Then you've got to be okay with it. You've got to show them how to fail and then cry about it and then get back up the next day. I mean, the amount of times that they watched me physically or emotionally hurt from a setback or an injury or even emotionally, right? Like that they've seen me go through more than probably like a lot of kids should. But I also feel like, which was up to me, according to whatever I did to come out of that and be better, that makes them better.
Right. They
and
can
so
see the example.
I just don't think shying away from ambition is something our children need. I think our children need to see us chase our ambitions like hell, because that's what's going to teach them to do the same thing. Kids never do what we say. They do what we do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah.
That you can see that when they're little.
Hey, don't you swear.
So there's one word that I always use that I didn't realize it was a bad word, because it wasn't that much of a bad word in Guatemala, but it's not that best. It's in Spanish.
Yeah.
And I say it once in a while when I'm upset, they were little. And they start to repeat it to other Latin Americans. And to other Latin Americans, it's a horrible word. And it's like, who taught you that word? Your mom. My mom. I'm like, oh, it's just funny.
Your mother, where is she?
Yeah, and it's funny because it's not like I said, is a Spanish word, but they picked it up really fast. And I won't say it here because there might be some Latin Americans.
Now I'm morbidly curious. Plug your ears.
I'll tell you in the gym. But this actually ties it really well what you just said to me, because my first guest this year, in the beginning of the month, was my husband. Yeah. And he is just really wonderful at lining up purpose and goals and focus and all that kind of thing. And that's why I invited him. But he gave me a list of things that people at different degrees, right? People usually have for their New Year resolutions, it's just a wish. They get nothing done with it. And you were saying it's about the doing and the example. So the list was a wish, a plan, an objective, a goal, and then an activity.
That's intricate.
Isn't it great? But it's nothing until you do something about it.
Right.
So I appreciate your time. I know you've got to run back to your next person that you need to train.
Yeah.
But let's end this really intense session with some embarrassing moment. I know some of them, so you can't remember them. I'll remind you.
Okay.
Because that would be really fun to see how this powerful, aware woman that is a mother and an athlete and just confident has had some embarrassing moments in the world on television.
You like decades of embarrassment?
Yeah.
Oh, which one? Which one do you want to talk about? I'll let you guide. Which thing?
The one about wedding.
Oh, peeing myself? Oh gosh, I do that all the time.
She's like, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah,
I thought that was a funny
no big deal.
You can choose a different
Which
one.
worlds? Which one? The one last year?
Like on television. I just remember you saying that, and I thought, oh my goodness, how difficult when you did that lifting and.
Oh, it's happened so many times. Okay, so where do you want me to go with this? Like,
I don't know.
How I handle that embarrassment?
No, I just wanted to tell a funny story.
Oh gosh,
There's so many funny stories I've heard from you, but it's really mean to put you on camera to tell the funny stories.
Man, well, I guess while we're talking about that, okay, so probably one of my most embarrassing experiences as a competitor was in 2018. It was an event where we had a 550-pound yoke, so it goes onto your back and you have to run with it. It's very difficult. So you run with it, and then I had to run back and grab a 225-pound sandbag and then carry it all the way down and then put it over the top of the yoke. This was an event I was only successful completing twice in training. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah, no
at least
kidding.
successful inside of training. It was an insane event. And we get to competition day, and I'm no joke. I'm going against my rival. Like, to this day, me and her, we don't do well in close quarters. So I'm going against my rival. So my pride, my everything is on the line.
And it's been televised.
Yes, it's being televised. And right before I go, I had the current world's strongest man. He turned to me, and I was good. I'm still good friends with him. His name is Eddie Hall, and he turned to me and he's like, "You should really lower your yoke pick." So that means like to lower it closer to the ground, so that I could get the sandbag over easier. But the problem with that is it makes hoisting the yoke itself actually harder because it's lower to the ground, so it's more range of motion.
Yeah.
So I do what I never do: listen to somebody else. But I mean, how could you not listen to Eddie Hall?
Man.
He was at the time, he was the world record deadlift holder. He's famous inside of the sport. So I was going to take the advice. Took the advice, lowered the yoke, picked it up. I dropped it like 3 times. And this is one of my best events. And this was my time to beat my rival. So we're going, and I dropped the yoke probably two or 3 times. It was an insane event. It went, and then I drop it. I finally get to the end line. I'm running back. I pick up the sandbag. I can feel myself start to like pee. And it happened literally the entire way down all 50 feet. Like, just I left this literal trail as I'm carrying this 225-pound sandbag. And I get to the end, and I'm trying to get it over the yoke, and I pass out. No joke. I come up to put it up. I drop, and you can see it on the film. And then everyone, you can see it on my face. I know what was happening, but everyone in the room goes silent. They're like,
what's happening?
And I just go, boom, fall back. The sandbag falls on top of me. So not only did I like make the biggest mess of it, like literally just like screw up, my rival beat me, like not a little bit, like she destroyed me. And I also left like such a mess that like when I came to and they'd rolled the sandbag off me, they were like, I didn't know. And then I looked over and they were mopping. Literally mopping all the way down, and they had to pause the entire contest. And then we did the exact same thing the next year, and everyone just knew at this point. We called it the diaper gang. So everyone jokes about me having to wear a diaper when I compete, but also I found out after that event, because I was so humiliated, that like multiple other women struggled with the same thing. So
Nice.
Yes.
Now we got really close and personal. Thanks for being willing to
no
just
problem.
indulge us in this
Don't be
crazy
scared to wet
story.
yourself publicly. It's not always the worst thing that could happen to you.
And then you got up and did it again. Right?
Yeah.
That wasn't your last
next
event
year.
You were too
No,
embarrassed.
yeah, the next year. Yeah, the next year I did the exact same thing again, and it was completely worth it. Yeah.
You carried it and you
Yeah.
didn't pass out.
Nope. I was like, oh, we're gonna let it happen. Let it flow.
So it doesn't get much worse than this audience. So, if you're embarrassed because your kid just said something stupid to your neighbor, get over it. Right?
Yeah. Get over it. Let it flow.
Get over it. This is not in television.
It's not in anything but television, as long as people are not watching you wet yourself for 50 straight feet.
Oh, so
but it's
funny.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. I'll see you next week.
Yeah. Yay.
Don't make me lift too much. Thanks.
No problem.
Thanks for joining me in this conversation with Beck today. She is just wonderful and has worked really hard to be strong, as is working me hard also. I'm sure you could feel her power and her passion and her energy. If you want to learn more, visit at peacetoday.com.